Do you like to travel or even compare different parts of the United States with other regions? Well, I have had the amazing opportunity to do just that the last few years, and I was joined recently. Today, we share the differences of Montana with the rest of the United States. Welcome to Hashknife Hangouts. I'm Calen. My co-host and father is Brandon. Today, we are joined by my mother, Lisa. If if you enjoy what we provide on this channel, please take a moment to hit the like button, and while you're at it, please subscribe. What is the difference between Montana and Kentucky? That's the topic of today's discussion. I've been living away from the ranch for about 6 years now, to 10 if you count college, but then there was that mere 2-hour drive away, and that was all. I spent 3 years in New York, and now I've been a little over 2 years in Kentucky. I was fortunate enough to have my mother visit me during this past Christmas time. She and my brother got to experience a lot of things I have gotten to do over the past 2 years. They simply condensed it into 10 days. What an exciting adventure. What exactly did we do? Well, here's the list, so hold on tight. We played games at Topgolf, visited the Louisville Slugger Museum, saw the General Patton Museum at Fort Knox, The three of us visited Nashville, where we saw President Jackson's estate, walked Broadway, saw the Ryman Theater, walked through the Johnny Cash and Glenn Campbell museums. I personally had a small road rage incident, and then we all enjoyed an arcade games and food bar at Dave & Buster's before finishing the Saturday with the Grand Ole Opry. The very next day, we did one of my favorite things, distillery tours. 7 over the course of the trip, to be exact, and finished with a personal tour of Churchill Downs, where we finished our final night in Kentucky seeing Lights Under Louisville before we returned to Montana, where we decided to spend a night sleeping in an airport on our way toward an Arctic blast that met us with 22 below zero temps and a wind chill of 50 below. Check out the card above. Some quick facts and my perspective on the biggest differences between Kentucky and Tennessee compared to Montana is it tends to be greener here. It's much more so horse country than it is cattle country. There's a lot more people. It's more racially diverse. It's faster to travel around for sure. A lot more bourbon, far more trees, especially throughout the state rather than just one half of the state. More temperate climate. But there is that 2-hour difference between Eastern time and Mountain time. The biggest cities, Montana has Billings with a population of a mere 118,000, roughly speaking. And Louisville has the population of approximately 630,000. Montana is the 4th largest state. Kentucky and Tennessee are the 37th and 36th largest states, respectively. They'd have bigger numbers if we went smaller. As of 2022, Montana ranks 33 and Kentucky ranks 41, according to U.S. News, when it comes to comparing and consolidating scores on healthcare, education, economy, infrastructure, opportunity, fiscal stability, crime and corrections, and finally, natural environment. Keep in mind, this is just Kentucky and parts of Tennessee. I've also experienced a vast majority of the United States over the last 6 years and can compare quite a bit. However, since Mom joined me alongside my brother not too long ago, I wanted to share a fresh perspective and discuss some basic differences and similarities you will find among the rest of the United States compared to where our ranch is located in our home state of Montana. So with that, I'll turn it over to the boss and dad.
I'm the boss.
By default, no matter what.
I think this thing that stands out the most to me are the trees. Oh my gosh, the trees are so pretty in Kentucky. And I only got to see it in the wintertime. I can't even imagine what it's got to look like in the summer and fall.
Yeah, and I've said that before too, was the fact that it's so green. It's like a bright emerald green, and it's the lushness that we get to experience for probably 2 weeks out of the springtime, and then it starts to quickly turn brown.
That's true.
There's something else there too. That green that you have is not near as good a grass as what we got. You got a lot of it, but so much rain washes that grass out, and
the nutrients.
I know that there's horses standing belly deep in green grass down there and
not getting the nutrition they need. Yeah.
You got to supplement them.
But it's beautiful country, and the geology there I thought was really interesting because there's a lot of rock. I mean,
Mhm.
you're right there next to the Appalachians, which is really heavily eroded, old mountain ranges versus our shiny new rugged mountain ranges in Montana. That was a huge difference. And I'd been east before, but it was neat to see it that far south from what I'd seen before. And
Well, that's a good point too, because geologically speaking, when I graduated college, one of my bigger gifts that you guys got me was I got to go to Gettysburg. You got to take me to Gettysburg, and we were giving the our tour guide of the battlefield of Gettysburg a hard time, saying, "Oh, these are all baby mountains from the Appalachian." He goes, "Oh no, what you're talking about are granddaddy mountains. Yours are baby mountains." And he goes,
Yeah.
"Ours has been around for thousands more years, millions more years than yours. They've just been eroded over time. Yours are still brand new and they're still growing." I'm like, "Oh, that's a very good perspective."
it is, yeah. Yeah, they look like hills to us, but that's what the Rockies are going to look like some point.
At
Right.
least you knew his geology.
Yeah,
Yeah, for sure.
had some science there behind
Now,
his
I know Dad's been over here briefly, very briefly.
but he got to see it when the leaves were out and pretty.
For the most part. I mean, they were starting to fall because it was September. What was your perspective at the time?
Well, the one thing you got to clarify when you're talking about the size of Kentucky versus the size of Montana, you were talking population, they're much larger, but Montana's fourth in square miles area.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and so Kentucky's way down there. You know, one of the things every
How
time
long does it take to go across Kentucky, drive across it?
about 3 hours.
If you go north to south, yes, it's about 3 hours. If you go east to west, though, it's
5 hours.
probably closer to
3 hours and 45 minutes.
What was it?
Probably 5.5 or 6.
That's what I would think. So
Yeah.
if you go from, say, Sydney and take the interstate down and around to Missoula in Idaho, what is that? 13 hours?
Well, yeah, probably. But if you just go
You
a
could go
straight line
straight a line.
diagonally across the state from up there around Eureka down to like Alzada, from the northwest to the southeast, and you take that same amount of distance and you put your one end on Chicago, it will reach like New York. They give you an
Right.
idea.
Another my Montana history class in college, they also said the teacher I had was very knowledgeable, and he said another similar perspective is it's closer from Billings, Montana to the northern tip of Texas than it is to go from the northwestern portion of Montana to the southeastern portion of Montana.
Right.
Wow.
So
Wow.
that also helps with the perspective as well.
Yeah. But it's a whole lot of grassland. I
Yeah.
think that's why the trees stick out to me so much, is because we have so much grassland. I mean, we've got mountains,
Right.
but we've got way more grassland than we do mountains.
Well, we don't have hardwoods here.
Right. They have a variety of trees. We have a lot less variety of trees.
Most
I think Braden nerded out on that a little bit, but
He
But he
did.
did. I bet he did. Yeah.
yeah.
No, the one thing that whenever I hear Kentucky, I always there's two thoughts that come to mind.
Last the
When I was a little
Mohicans.
kid, what's that?
Last the Mohicans.
Yeah, that's one of them. That's the second one. The first one was I remember meeting a guy from Kentucky, and I was probably second grade, third grade, and this guy was very large, and he was fairly self-important. But I can remember him standing there talking. He pulls out a toad stabber of a pocket knife and stands there and trims his fingernails while we're talking. And I thought at that time I was like, is this what everybody in Kentucky does? I mean, you're a third grader.
I was gonna say that leaves a lasting
It
impression.
does, and it was I guess I was more impressed probably with
By
the
the
knife than anything. But then when I hear, Kentucky, I think the Last of the Mohicans, because I always say that Kentucky.
Right.
So great movie, by the way.
Daniel Day-Lewis was awesome in that.
One of the greatest soundtracks of all time, in my opinion.
Exactly. Oh yeah, it was a great soundtrack.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's we never saw Kentucky in the movie, I don't believe.
No, I think it was all in the Allegheny Mountains of New York,
exactly.
if I remember correctly. Yeah.
But they talked about it, so that was the new frontier.
Right.
So anyway,
We're the newer frontier.
I was really impressed by really the hardwoods as well. and not being able to see, because we can
Mhm.
see forever here.
You
Yeah.
can see a town coming up on you.
Yeah,
You
but
can't up there necessarily.
GPS on your phone tends to be a whole lot more valuable out here in Kentucky than it is in Montana.
So Bray and I went to Maker's Mark by ourselves.
of course you did.
You were somewhere else.
Debaucherous behavior.
And I think I took a wrong turn. And
who's
Yeah,
gonna
I know
tell
you
where
did
to
because
go?
you came in the wrong way.
and the GPS, yes, we did. The GPS, I thought it said I thought the turn was the next turn, and it was I went one turn too far.
Did
Anyway.
you argue with the GPS?
I
That you
argued
were right.
I argued with Braden, I believe, who was in charge of the GPS. No. I was watching the GPS at the time. And then after that, Braden insisted that he navigate. So
Who was driving?
I was driving
Mom.
because he did. Yeah. Anyway, so Braden navigated and told me where I needed to go. Okay, turn
Which
here,
you
do this.
completely ignored.
No, I think I mostly followed it. And
Mostly. Listen to the qualifiers when she speaks.
we got to a point and he said, all right, it's such and such road, hang a left. I'm like, Braden, this is odd because I'm not seeing any signs that say Maker's Mark. And I would think there would be signs identified.
There are.
And so we turned, and I think it's called Maker's Way or something like that. So I knew we were
That sounds
close.
right.
And so we go on this road. It is an oversized single lane road.
Yep.
And it meanders through some little farms and things. And it was very
It's
pretty.
the service road, if anybody's curious.
We got there. We came
Yeah.
in the back way, but we made it.
It's where the trucks go to
It is.
come into Makers to fill up with the cases and all the alcohol, and then they go out the other direction, which was where Mom ended up coming out as well.
We did.
To
We
take
went.
and
Well, we wanted a
distribute
variety to
said
see where
goods.
we were. Yeah.
Yeah, of course.
So anyway, we got there, and we got there early, so it must have been a good road.
Well, that's good. I'm
And
so glad.
we saw some scenery, and we got on the earlier tour because we were so early. So it was all good, but yeah, it was kind of funny because like, Ray, are you sure? Yeah, it says we got to go this way. Well, we got a Maker's Way, so we knew we were close. We could walk it from there.
I was gonna say we counted. There were you went to 7 distillery tours. I think I only went with you to 6 of them. Correct? I think that's right. Because Makers was the only one I didn't go to with you.
Yeah. Oh no, we went to Limestone too.
Oh, that's right. You went to
Yeah,
Limestone
at the same time. We would have gone
because
to
it's in the same area. It's only like
yeah, we
15
would have
minutes
gone
away.
to Willett had I realized, but that we probably couldn't have just stopped in there, would be my guess.
Yeah, not that one. It's pretty highly coveted.
Yeah.
But we found out if anybody is visiting Kentucky during November to probably February is the time to go to distillery tours because
A
the
lot of
prime
them are-
tourist season is during the summer, and rightfully so. It's beautiful here, and yeah, it just
Yeah.
makes sense.
And a lot of those, we were the only ones on the tour. That was so awesome.
Yeah.
It was really quiet and they took their time. Not that they probably wouldn't always, but it was good. And Makers was a beautiful location. Oh my gosh.
Mhm. I know Dad's been there
Honestly.
too.
Mhm.
That
Yeah.
I when I saw that and we were over closer to Lexington, those were the images I had in my mind of what Kentucky would
Those are
look like.
postcard type
Yeah.
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 opportunities.
Just
Well, and
gorgeous.
especially because I had never been where Woodford is located.
Oh, that's
it-
neat.
It's not. So if anybody reads it on the map, you would see it as Versailles, like the Palace Versailles from France. But in this part of the world, you are quickly identified as not being from the local area when you say it like that. It's Versailles. They say Versailles.
I did notice they talk funny down there,
Yeah, they talk a lot funny.
and they
Anyway,
talk a lot slow too.
Yeah, Mom. Peppering them with questions constantly and not letting them finish their answers. But that's okay. But no, over by
Inquiring minds. I wanted
over
to
by
know.
Versailles, I had been past that area, but I'd never been really in that area. And seeing Woodford and then driving to our next location after that, which was Angel's Envy in Louisville, which I've been to Louisville many times and I'm familiar with that. But to drive through that country, that is more of the standard horse farms and
Yeah.
horse fences and pastures that I had always
The plank
imagined in my head.
fences
and I
everything
finally
you
saw
could
it.
see. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, because even around Churchill Downs, you didn't see that because
Mm-mm.
it's in the middle of a city.
Right. They've got the paddock, which was under construction when we were there. It'll be unveiled, I think they said 2024.
Yeah.
But we mostly got to see the stalls and everything where they hold the
Yeah, we did the
animals.
backyard or back barn tour, which I was glad we did that one because it was the most interesting to me.
Mm-hmm. Yep, we got to see where Secretariat was kept
Resided.
during his stay.
Yep.
Then we got to stand in the brand new chute, or not the chutes, the gates, the
Yeah.
starting gates. And because of the special circumstances that happened in 2022's race, where the 21st horse was able to get into the lineup, we were able to look at the one of rarities, which is instead of having the gates numbered 1 through 20, it was 1 through 19 and then 21. So that was kind of cool.
Yeah. Yeah, I was kind of surprised they didn't change his number since 20 scratched. They
Right.
kept it as 21, and he was the one that won.
Well, but why would you change the horse? I mean, that's what they're entered at. That's what
Right.
everything is at.
Well, I was just thinking, you got 20 gates, 20's not there, you make him 20 again.
Does it
right?
matter where they start from? It does, but
Yeah.
the number doesn't matter.
Remember those
There's some
statistics?
superstition there.
Oh
Oh,
yeah, and 13,
horse
nobody
racing
wants
world.
13.
yeah, of course not. How
Yeah.
many floors in a hotel do you see at
You don't see
13?
13, you go straight.
But the thing is, there's one, I think it was 17, is
Yeah.
17 has never ever placed at all.
No kidding.
Yeah.
And they've now because of the superstition surrounding it, part of the way in which the committee determines the numbers for the horses is not only by there's two of them. It's the first is they roll the balls like go with a power ball and you get the horse.
Mhm.
That way you're not going based off of who's the number one horse in
Right.
terms of odds or anything, or who's the last. They go whatever horse it is. Then they roll the next power ball and they get the gate number. And
Okay.
if you are tagged up with, I think it's 13 and 17, everybody pretty much just they're completely downtrodden. They're like, I've lost this race before it's even began.
And there
Wait till
was
Secretariat. What was that, number 21? Secretariat?
Well, he was in stall 21.
stall 21.
Stall 21,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
But who was it that
Oh, he was number 10. Secretariat was 10. That's right.
Oh.
yeah, that's why you got
Been
the
a long time.
koozie that was 10. It's a purple koozie that's 10. But was it a few years back, and I think he was the funny, I can't remember the name. Anyway,
Oh, Smarty Jones?
Smarty Jones, was he in gate 17, but his number was 18, so it didn't count? Remember
Something
that?
like that. Yeah.
Because it wasn't horse 7. Yeah, it wasn't.
It wasn't
Because
Gates.
because Smarty
Oh,
Jones won 2 of the 3
Right.
the 2 of the 3 crowns, but
Because it seems as though he was 18, but instead of leaving 17 open, they shifted him. Does that sound like
that
was
sounds
what
right. Yeah,
happened?
something happened. It was a late scratch, like the day of or something, and they shifted him down because they said
and
there's no
then-
point in having a gap.
They didn't count it as
Yeah, because he wasn't truly 17. He was
Yeah.
a different number. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
So that was
it's
interesting.
intricacies.
Well, and
Technicalities,
rationalizations
yeah,
is
yeah.
what it amounts to.
All right.
but
Yeah, the horse world or horse racing world is full of superstition. I mean,
Right.
there's tons of stuff.
but that was really cool to get back there and see it. And there were some workers still there with some horses. I think there were still about 100 in residence horses at the time. And we got to chat with one gentleman, and he said they were leaving shortly
Mhm.
because they kind of closed down the
Yeah,
back.
it's not for about 3 months.
Yeah.
They said mid-December to mid-March is when they're
And
closed
then-
down.
In March, it opens up to training, and all the horses come, and a lot of them live there and train. So you can actually get tours to go at like breakfast time to see them train.
So do they have a lot of the very well-known trainers there during that entire time?
No,
No,
okay,
so they come in
they
and
have
out. There is a
farms.
part where D. Wayne Lucas, I think he's
Yeah.
the most winningest trainer.
Him or Baffert?
Well, no, he's the most winningest trainer at Churchill Downs,
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
and he has kind of his own stall area where all of his horses go.
See,
And,
they rent
and it is kind of
barns.
odd because it's almost like there's a memorial wall to him as well, because it shows all the horses he's trained that have won championships or Kentucky Derby wins or Oaks wins and stuff like that, which if anybody's not familiar, the Kentucky Derby is really the national race. The Kentucky Oaks is the day before, and that's the Kentucky race. That's where everybody, it's the unofficial party, really. The real cool part, because everybody wants to, who is local, goes to the Oaks, and then everybody who's not local, celebrities and so on and so forth, will come to the Derby the following day.
And so the other part of that was, I think there's been one mare who won the Kentucky Derby.
There's been two or three, I think.
Okay. So there's only been a
And
handful.
the fillies.
Sorry, fillies that have won. And the Derby is traditionally a gelding or a stallion, I guess, isn't it?
Right.
Sometimes,
Derby. Yeah. But the Oaks is for the girls. So the Oaks is ladies' day.
Oh, really?
The Derby is.
Oh, I didn't know that. Huh.
Yeah.
Which I didn't realize, because it is filly centric. I didn't realize they also focus a lot of things, like he said, for breast cancer and any sort of women centric disease or associations or some sort of promotional thing that tends to be for women's associations, which is kind of cool. I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
So
I didn't know that.
Yeah, and he said it's gotten bigger and bigger
every year.
Yeah, so that's good.
I did wish we could have gone to a Lexington horse park, but we weren't able to do that.
Yeah, that would have been neat. And he said that's real horse country over there in the Lexington area.
Right, because they're constantly breeding as well. They have stallions like American Pharoah and so on that are there breeding on a regular basis.
Yeah.
Which I did not know. I think he explained that they do not, in the cattle industry where we have artificial insemination, they do not do that. It's all live breeding. It's all hand breeding, and they'll breed 2 days or 2 times a day. I don't think they do more than that, but they'll do once in the morning, once in the evening, and that's it. There's no artificial insemination, which is crazy, because I always thought you could get artificial insemination for the horses and that could last generations, but that's not the case at all.
Yeah.
Do they collect semen on some of these horses as they age? Some of those stallions?
It didn't.
I don't think so. It sounds like it's only while they're alive, and then once they're done, they're done.
Huh.
That was the impression I got, because I figured AI stuff too.
Right. And one good follow-up that I didn't have that I should have probably done is, do they retire the stallion before death, or is it once he's dead, then he no longer breeds?
Right.
Like, does he have a couple of years where he's just out to do his own thing and have fun? But I don't know. That would have been a good one for me to
see. I think I've heard of some that have gotten retired, but I'm not sure.
Possible. Yeah,
I'm not sure. But I enjoyed
Secretariat, for example, was a gelding, correct? If I remember right.
I think that's, I don't know.
I don't know if that's
well,
true.
good thing I got the Google machine.
Ask
here.
Uncle Google.
I think that's
see
correct.
What he says.
No. Just trying to think of it about when they talk about any progeny, if there's something that was from Secretariat.
I don't follow racing enough.
I'm not, I don't either, really.
And even though I don't follow racing, I always thought it'd be cool to see Churchill Downs because it's iconic. And guess who started it?
It was either the Churchills or the Downses.
Nope.
It was the two Churchill brothers.
It was Clark, though, that really got it going from Lewis and Clark. And it was his uncles that it was named after, the Churchill brothers.
The Churchill brothers were Clark. Jeez.
His uncles.
Yeah, but I'm trying to think of his first name.
William
Clark. Thanks.
The explorer.
Yeah.
The one on the Louisiana Purchase.
Yeah, that'd be the one.
Pompey's Pillar has his
all the way out to
all the way out to the coast.
So to answer Secretariat question, Uncle Google says Secretariat's record off the track was not as successful as it had been on it. Put out to stud late in 1973, the year he won the Triple Crown. He sired nearly 600 foals in his lifetime, including one horse that sold for more than $1 million at auction. But nearly all of his male offspring failed miserably at the racetrack. So interesting. But that's because I believe, if correctly, his heart was actually 2 or 3 times just naturally
larger
than all the others.
Right. Yep.
And that's what made him so amazing.
Yeah.
Just an abnormality that happened to work in his
Worked in his
favor.
favor.
Odd
Yeah.
mutant edition.
All right, let's start this. The things that we did. Top
Okay.
Golf. What were you thinking about Top Golf? Because I know Braden had two requests. He
He
said,
did.
I want Top Golf and I want to go to Dave and Buster's, which we kept
He
giving
wants-
him a hard time. We were like,
He wants to go to Danny
Dan
and
and
Bud's.
Bob's and stuff like that. And
Yep.
it got under his skin, which was funny.
Doug and Billy.
So he had a big red button about what you called Dave and Buster's.
Yeah.
Oh my God. And
Yeah.
I would make up 2 new names every time I mentioned it. And he was
Imagine
like,
that.
he was like,
The Queen of Torment.
anywho, Top Golf. I am not a golfer. I'm a mini golfer, not a golfer. I've golfed.
But there were no
twice.
mini golf options.
We couldn't find. We looked for mini golf. Everybody was closed. So we found. I have golfed twice, both times highly unsuccessful, and so I was ambivalent to it. I didn't care. I said, "Yeah, let's go." And we got there. Calen showed me the ropes, how it works.
Yep.
First of all, they had a heater, so I was warm.
Because it is
That's-
outdoors. That's
Second of all,
yeah, but how
they
cold is
had-
Kentucky?
it can get chilly.
45?
at the time, I think it was like high
It was
30s.
It was
Wow.
kind of chilly. They have beverages and food, so I was happy. And third, and most importantly, they had an indoor potty very short distance away. So,
yeah,
It hit
your
all of
life's
my
needs
big-
are all fulfilled
It
there.
hit all my big buttons. And then I got to whack a ball, which
We tried to play Angry Birds. You can
Oh,
it
that was
follows
fun.
because how Top Golf works, if people don't understand, is the ball has a GPS inside of it, and when you hit the ball, it's within a netted area, and it's got sensors throughout that kind of show where the ball lands, and it gives you a 3D reenactment of where your ball went. So if you can do things where there's different pits like netting, that if you get into the netting, you get points and so on and so forth. What this game was is there are sensors in the field that create a digital Angry Bird structure like you would on your phone, and you can see it on the screen, not outside in the
you have to look at the screen.
okay.
to
the
decide
yard,
if you
obviously,
hit it.
but you'd
Okay.
see, you'd look on the screen, kind of get an idea, and then you would hit the ball, and then you'd watch the reenactment on the screen and see if you got the Angry Bird structure. And so
of course
Mom
I
had the most fun with that because she was creating all sorts of chaos and mayhem with it.
Okay, so I've heard of Angry Birds, but I don't know anything about it. So,
It was fun.
Yeah,
And
it was fun.
I've-
regardless.
so it's
I've played
basically a virtual game that you're playing.
Mhm.
A virtual video game, kind
By
of.
playing golf.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
And so I wasn't awesome, but I got better as the day went on.
Normally you do, as long as you don't drink too much, which
I was going to
Braden
say
had quite a few mimosas that day for
Mimosas
whatever
is
reason.
what
He
he was
decided
having
his
that day,
drink
yeah.
of choice was going to be mimosas. So
Yeah.
no kid. That just doesn't.
And he was having fun.
That's what
He
happens
was.
when you get a girlfriend that
oh, that must be it. Yeah, I
Mhm.
forgot about that.
that'll ruin your whole
Well,
palate for whiskey.
but then after that, we went to the Louisville Slugger Museum.
Yeah, that was
There you
fun.
go. And we got to see the Louisville Sluggers get created. This is a miniature one, obviously, but they take this out of the scraps that they use to make the real ones, and they showed us the process and how it works, and some of the selected players from each major league team that
Who
goes
buy
to the
bats.
Louisville Slugger museum / factory, and they get their bats made. And so Mom got to take a picture in front of some of that. That was kind of cool.
Yeah.
So are these bats? Are they made all lathed by machine, or are
Mhm.
they hand lathed with an
Machine.
individual?
They used to be a long time ago done by hand. They are now by machine, and we watched the machine knock out a real size bat within a matter of, I think it was about 20 seconds.
Yeah, it didn't
they've
take
got-
very long.
They've got 2 or
It
3
just
of
went-
them that go simultaneously. Yeah.
They've got 2 lathes.
That's
there's big
almost too bad.
windows.
I'd almost rather see those handmade.
Yeah,
You know, that'd be.
You know how
but
much time
You gotta, you gotta be an
how much time
artisan.
that would take.
Oh, I do know
But-
how much time it would
and then
take.
the
Yeah.
cost. What would the manpower?
I don't care about that. It's about.
Okay.
It's about.
I'm just,
Well, maybe we can
Because then
convince
they
them to
start the
do
new
one
guys out of the
handmade
little
one, and then they
miniature
can
bats.
sell those. How about that?
What?
So maybe they can do a special one where they do hand make some, and then they sell those specifically for people like you.
Well, they probably could, but I would think that this is the little miniature bats would be their apprentice program when they get that.
There you go. Yeah, I had fun with these.
Yeah, I think those are cool. We all got one for going on the tour.
I got one that's a pen.
Yep, you got one that's a
Yeah.
pen.
And then I did get a real one, so I'll take it back, and it'll be my souvenir from traveling the world for a while.
There you go.
Yeah.
Then a couple days later we went to Fort Knox and the General Patton Museum. What did you think about that?
It's disappointing you don't get to, tour Fort Knox, but
I mean, I gave you a
cool.
tour, but
Yeah, but inside.
oh, you're talking about the depository.
Yeah, the depository.
Yeah.
Okay, that's what I mean. Okay, the depository. The depository is much smaller than I anticipated. I thought it'd be a larger structure.
Right.
It's very unassuming. I thought it would be like, I don't know, guards patrolling with humongous German shepherds type of thing. And that was, and then the Patton Museum, I enjoyed that. I thought that was nicely done. Learned a little more about him than what I knew before. So that was good. And the Fort Knox I thought was interesting because just how the military is set up.
Structured. Yeah. The one thing I'll say about the depository is people will often ask, is it controlled by the U.S. Army because it's a U.S. Army post that's directly associated with it? And the answer is no, it's the U.S. Mint. And if you go by the depository, you'll see like police vehicles that all say U.S. Mint. And so there's absolutely no military control of it whatsoever. I think there's probably an agreement or a memorandum of understanding or something, but that's all controlled by the Mint. So
I would have thought that had been a military operation. Huh, I'll be darned. Didn't know that.
But if you go golfing on Fort Knox and you hit the ball a little to the south, to the west, actually, if you hit it to the west just a little too much, and you try to retrieve said ball through the fence, you will have vehicles come up. I did not experience this, but I've heard it secondhand. So they will tell you to please leave immediately.
So you lose your ball, huh?
Yeah. I have lost one over there. I've had a couple of friends that he's a lefty and it goes that way quite a bit. So yeah, you just gotta be careful.
Oh, that's funny.
Then we went to Nashville. We went to President Jackson's what they call hermitage. It's essentially his estate.
His retirement.
We've been to the 2 of the 3.
Yep.
3 out of the 4 of us, I should say. Dad's the only one that's not part of it. But 2 of the 3
Dad has to
presidential
stay back at work.
Yeah. 2 of the 3 presidential estates that are under like care of the I guess
national parks,
I think, right?
I think
maybe
so.
his is a state park. Regardless, they've been preserved and they're you can visit them. We've been to Mount Vernon, which was really cool. I'd love to go to Monticello, which was Thomas Jefferson, but haven't been there yet. But I had no intention of going to President Jackson's hermitage, and Mom's like, "Hey, this looks cool." Before things start up in Nashville, because their time difference between us, they're an hour behind where I live. We were like, "Oh yeah, we can leave normal a little bit earlier, see the hermitage for an hour or 2, and then go do other stuff at Nashville." That's exactly what we did, and it was very cool. I was pleasantly surprised. Had no intention of doing that, but I'm glad that we did because it was very cool to see how his frugality led to his immense wealth at the end of his life. And he was very well off to finish his life, and then his son squandered it because he apparently did not know how to handle finances.
Yeah,
which is crazy.
Yeah. And the things that I enjoyed about that, and we'd seen it at Mount Vernon, was some of the ways that they economically made things look more expensive than they were.
Right.
So like the wood trim, and it was painted to look like marble.
Using feathers and paint.
Because Mount Vernon
did the same.
They had wood. It was wood structure blocks that looked like
sandstone bricks.
Sandstone, and they painted and threw sand on it.
Right. Yep. Right. Same idea. And, and they compared it to that.
So those were at the time and later really kind of standard ways to make a place look more
nice.
opulent than
Yeah.
it really was.
Yeah.
Huh.
Now, I will tell you, from what I remember of Mount Vernon compared to President Jackson's Hermitage, Mount Vernon is much more regal and beautiful to see from the Potomac.
Mm-hmm.
So the backside of the state, the Hermitage is much more beautiful from the front side. And that's because there is a path, a carriage path that leads directly to the front of the house.
Big sweeping.
And there's a big sweeping circle in front of it. And there are trees that line the carriage path. And it's very beautiful. It's something that's very grandiose to come up on if you were to be traveling to it. It's very cool to see.
Huh.
Yeah. Yeah. And I enjoyed seeing that. I always enjoy seeing the history and what life was like well before us.
Yeah. And we wish we could probably show some pictures of the inside of the house, but they don't allow that.
Yeah.
Whereas Mount Vernon,
How many pictures did your mother take?
About 2 or 3, and then they
There
stopped
you go. You are not a rule follower.
No. I honestly didn't hear her say that. She said,
but
"Ma'am,
if I remember correctly, Mount Vernon,
they
let you do that as long as it
Yeah.
wasn't flash photography that you could take
Yeah.
pictures. But for the Hermitage, they said no whatsoever.
Yeah. And there were several items there in the front parlor that were some of his favorite items, books and things that was kind of cool. But
what did you think about Broadway in Nashville? If nobody's familiar with Nashville, Broadway is where pretty much all the bars are. If you think of neon signs, it's like the eastern version of Vegas in that regard, in a very small 5-block row. You've got record labels near there. You've got the historic Ryman Theater immediately off that little roadway.
So that's what's known as Music Row then? Broadway?
Essentially, yeah.
Okay. All right.
You'll hear now I'd never been through Broadway in the early afternoon like we had, but there was a lot more live music during that time, which was really cool to see. And they were actually pulling people in saying, "Hey, come in, come check it out."
Yeah.
I'd never experienced that before because I was always coming in, doing stuff in the afternoon, and then coming to Broadway in the evening when most everybody else was. And at that point, that's where they put bouncers out and they're like, "Hey, hold on, wait for a couple people to leave, then we'll let you in." It's just, yeah.
If we didn't get the chance to sit and listen to any music for any length of time, but if we were to ever go, I would much prefer to go in the afternoon when we were first there, when they were saying, "Come on in, we got music," and then windows open so you could hear it, and it really was nice. And it wasn't crowded. But by the time we started heading over to the Opry,
which was about 5 o'clock,
it was getting busy.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to go that time.
What day of the week was this? Like a Friday, Saturday?
Saturday. Yeah.
So it was Saturday, wasn't it? Yeah.
Okay.
Because I had to get the tickets for Saturday evening at the Opry is what it was.
Right. That's right.
Is it busy like that during the middle of the week then too? I wouldn't imagine it is, but
I've not been there during the middle of the week, so I couldn't honestly tell you.
I think that's your answer probably right there.
Yeah. But the afternoon was very enjoyable, and we went to the Country Music Hall of Fame, which you could spend days in there. And we spent an hour and a half maybe in there.
Braden and I spent partly because Braden and I had seen a lot of it from the previous year. Because it was all within the same year. Him and I had been there on literally New Year's Day of 2022, and we were just coming into it at the end of 2022. So some of the exhibits were year-long exhibits, so we were still within that 365 days, and I think that's why we saw it. But yeah, Braden and I had seen a lot of that stuff, but I know they changed things out. So like the Chris Stapleton, there's an exhibit for him that was originally for Casey Musgraves, and it was kind of showing the things that those two artists had done over time to get to where they are now. They're more popular. Then there's still the Martina McBride exhibit, which I think is there for just this year, maybe a little bit longer, but it shows where these artists were from where they first started out to where they finished their career or towards the end of their career. They've got all sorts of stuff that they've got gold, platinum, and all sorts of different special albums that are up on the walls that you can see.
And that's impressive.
Of amazing names: Patsy Cline, Dolly Parton, Johnny Cash, Tim Horton, Glenn Campbell,
Tim Horton. Who's Tim Horton? You mean Johnny Horton?
Sorry, Johnny Horton. I'm thinking Tim Horton, the coffee place, like up in New York, which was named after an NHL player. But anyway, I digress. But yeah, there's just amazing names. Hank Williams Jr. You can keep going down that list, and their name is on some sort of album up on those walls. I guarantee.
Yeah, and that was pretty impressive. That was cool. But walking up and down the street, that was awesome. We had great barbecue and
the barbecue though I had down there,
really good.
That was
the barbecue we went to was better than that one though.
Was it?
I'm not gonna lie. Yeah.
No.
The one you two went to was better?
No, the one that I took you and Braden.
Oh,
yeah, but when you can smell a pig burning down the road, I mean, it just draws you in, right?
Yeah, and it does. Yeah, for sure. The Grand Ole Opry, what'd you think about that?
I was going to just say Nashville, I thought as a town was kind of a neat town. It was just busy.
How many people are in there?
Too many.
Okay.
Yeah. For my taste.
You're more tolerant to that than I am.
Yeah.
I did say the same thing that I've said about Lexington. The thing I dislike about Nashville is that they try to keep it a small town feel when it's outgrown its size, and they need to start constructing and engineering bypasses.
Yeah.
And if you don't
we found that out on the way to the Opry.
Yeah. If you don't do that,
is that the road rage?
Yes, that is where the road rage came in effect. The fact that you just don't have efficient bypasses and byways, and then good ways of showing how traffic should be flowing almost got us into a wreck. Not kidding on that one, but it's just the same thing of Lexington is everybody wants it to be a small town, so they haven't created bypasses. So you have to go through 54 different streets to get from one end of town to the other. There's no way to get on an interstate or anything to come around. It still
continues to grow.
And it still continues to grow. Yes. All right.
So
the next day.
No.
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Talked about the Opry yet. So the Opry. Calen. What'd you think about the ride to the Opry? He was driving.
I said I almost got in an accident. I didn't like it. The worst part was the coming off the interstate. Yeah. I saw a bunch of people going to where we needed to go, so I thought I'm going to go to the next exit. I did. I'm glad I did that, but at the same time, it resulted in us potentially getting an accident because the way the lights are formed, I couldn't see things, and by the time it was too late, we were out in the interstate, or we were out in the intersection like everybody else, and we almost got hit. They almost hit us. Yeah, it was just.
And they were upset, and I think there were gestures, and
there were
sad, and we were just dead in the water because we didn't
calm you down after that. Then
yeah, because we were following the traffic. The light was green. Well, it had turned red. But the intersection is so broad without any light signage, you didn't know what was going on. And
the problem is the lights before it were keeping it congested, so you couldn't get there in time. It's just it's the backup.
It was a poorly engineered intersection, and we got there, but
not without some cuss words.
Nearly melted down, and we found a parking spot relatively with ease. And
what was important was I found it, and then I said, this is perfect because this is going to help us get out quickly, and it did.
Yeah
Because that's what, after the Opry, getting out was the next
the escape is always important.
And I don't mind walking in a parking lot.
Well, and in that regard, because I'd been to the Opry before with Braden, like I said the year before, knowing how congested it gets near the Opry entrance, being further away from the entrance is in your benefit to just walk, because you can walk faster than you can drive. And when you can get to your vehicle quickly and just drive out, you're one of the first ones to leave, even though it took you a while to walk there. So it worked in our favor.
And we went to Danny and Bob's before the Opry. Okay, Braden was happy. And
I watched the Bobcats lose to South Dakota State in the process, which was a little disappointing.
That was disappointing.
Congratulations to South Dakota State, because they did win the championship. So
did they? I hadn't paid attention. So anyway, we went there and got to play some arcade games. They had an enormous Connect 4 on the wall. That was fun.
Which neither of them could figure out how to work it until Braden lost, and then he cried.
And
he doesn't like to lose.
Yeah, he didn't like to lose. But I didn't realize that you had to make your decision in like 20 seconds. And
so that's got to be difficult for you.
That is. when there's strategery involved,
Ow. Oh, my
you
neck.
gotta look at what your options are. So I was having to look faster. Anyway, that was kind of fun. And then we got a whole bunch of points on our thing. And I think Braden went looking for something to buy with his points and couldn't find anything he wanted, so he gave them to you, didn't he?
Yeah.
Did you use them?
No. Then the next day we went.
No. Now the Opry.
Okay,
Right?
go ahead. Yep, go ahead.
Then we went to the Opry. That was awesome. I really enjoyed that.
Well, I'm glad you did.
We had really good seats. Calen picked us good seats.
I've been there twice now. If I were to pick it again, I'd get better seats. I think I know where I'd go this time. But
Boy,
I'm not
we
going to
were
divulge that
smack dab
information
in the
in
middle
public.
in front of the
We
stage.
were. Yeah.
And I mean, and it's small enough that anywhere you go is a good seat in there, honestly.
Yeah, I think I could have gotten us better seats. But yeah, no, everything, any seats there,
The
definitely a
music
good one
was
for
great,
sure.
and the guy that was debuted did a great job.
He had a high expectation to meet because the person who introduced him is one of the all-time greats in the country music industry, and that was Garth Brooks. He came out, the entire auditorium went crazy, and he introduced this man who sang 2 or 3 amazing songs and did a fantastic job singing those songs. I think 1 or 2 of them, I think he sang 3, and 1 or 2 of them I think he wrote himself, which was fantastic.
Yeah.
So I told Mom, I looked over, I said he's gonna go somewhere someday. So I hope he does. He sounded like Garth Brooks said, hey, this guy's got a head on his shoulders. He's somebody I look to also as inspiration.
He's a songwriter. Yep.
And he says, I hope you are able to get what I get from him. And I think I saw some teary eyes from some folks on one of the songs, which was very touching. So yeah, he did a very good job.
He did a nice job. And then Lori Morgan was a little later, and she's kind of more our era than yours.
Right.
And I always liked Lori Morgan's music, but she was so funny because she said, she said, maybe next time. What is his name? The newer artist. Can you find it?
I can find it.
Did you say like a chip or something?
No.
Chris?
I think you're getting closer.
I wasn't even there.
Yeah.
You remember you guys telling me about it?
Mitch Rossell.
Okay.
Mitch Rossell, I think.
Rossell, yeah. And so Lori Morgan, before she really gets going, she's sitting there on her stool with her guitar, and she says, I don't know about you folks, but he's a talent, really. And she said, Mitch, maybe next time we can get you somebody better to introduce you.
Yeah. That poor little fella came out here. He didn't really know what to do or something like that.
Yeah, that poor little fella that came out to introduce you. Maybe we can find somebody to do a little better job next time.
That's funny.
So I appreciated her sense of humor, but it was just cool to be there because the Opry is kind of legendary, honestly.
Right.
And I wanted to see the Ryman because that's originally where the Opry was.
Which the circle at the Opry came from the Ryman.
I was going to say, didn't they take part of the stage where
the microphone is in the center of the Ryman? They took, was it 3-4 foot diameter, would you say? Maybe
it's
bigger.
It's probably 3.5-ish. Yeah.
So, and they put it in the center, and then there's the microphone.
So all of the previous stars that had stood on that spot, they took that to okay.
So and to lead into that,
to
lead into that, a cool part of that is hold on a second.
But the history there.
Right. There's a lot of history there. But the other thing too, there it is. Holly Williams was at the Opry. And Holly Williams is the daughter of Hank Williams Jr. and obviously the granddaughter of Hank Williams. She got to play that night as well. And there is a very strict code or rule that the Opry has, which is if you are not a performer, you are not to go on stage. Now, Holly Williams was she shared the stage with her husband. It was just her and her husband. Her husband's kind of like the backup vocals / also a backup guitarist and kind of helps support the songs. Because of that history of that circle, her children were there. They had 4 of them, 3 little kids, and then one that had just been born a few months ago. And she told the opposite. I know the strict rules that you guys have, but I want my babies to come out here and see what this is like, because hopefully they can get to stand in this circle as well. So at that point, 4 generations of that family had gotten to stand in that circle, just like she had when she was a kid with her father as well.
Yeah.
It was kind of cool.
That's an exception. I'm surprised they granted, but you're talking about some royalty there.
Yeah.
In the country, yeah, exactly. In that industry, that's definitely some royalty. But all right. The next day we went on distillery tours. What'd you think about that? Because you'd already gone to Makers and Limestone. We'd also stopped by the one that's next to my house, which is Boundary. And you enjoyed Patton. You also enjoyed the Lavender.
Yeah, that Lavender was good.
I knew you liked the Sinful 69, but I don't think they had that lineup already.
Yeah, the Lavender I liked actually quite a bit.
Yeah, which was surprising.
I'm not a whiskey
I did
person.
not think you would. Yeah, that's true.
So
what'd you think about going to like what was it? Woodford, Four Roses, and then
Angels
we went to Angels Envy too. Yeah.
So Woodford was gorgeous. I loved the setting and some of the history of the place. And the guy that was our tour guide was awesome. And it was just a really beautiful setting. And even though you're learning the same thing on each distillery tour,
right,
you get a little something different from each one too, and you learn a little bit here and there. And is it a rick house?
Technically, yeah. Rick
What
house,
is it?
yeah.
Okay.
Well, there's warehouses and rick houses. Warehouses, they're more palletized and they're stored in a palletized version.
So
a rick house is where they have the structures inside and you roll the barrels onto the structure.
And that's what we went into there, was a rick house. And that was really cool to go into that and see it. And he talked about the temperature change from top to bottom and the effect on the bourbon. And I don't know. I guess because whiskey making is most definitely a part of American history. George Washington had a distillery down the road from him. It's interesting to me to see that.
There's a lot of chemistry involved.
There's a lot of chemistry involved too. Yeah.
Well, and I would say, while Maker's Mark is still the most beautiful campus I've been to, Woodford is very close to it. And I had always been told Woodford's beautiful as well. And it is, by all means it is, but not quite as good as Maker's. So if anybody ever wants to go see the most beautiful distillery, so far my favorite has been Maker's.
And the reason is the gentleman who started Maker's, his wife took over the campus.
Yeah, she was smart. Yeah.
And she said, no, this is how it needs to look. And she knew what she was talking about. And the colors are indicative. Woodford is more classic distillery kind of stuff, I think. But with the age of some of those buildings, I mean, some of those buildings are pretty old that they had some of that stuff aging in. And definitely top 2 as far as if you want to go see a beautiful campus and the process, go to those 2. Then we went to Four Roses.
Yeah, you didn't like that one. That was most of it tasting though. You didn't. I thought their gift shop was actually beautiful, the way they set that up and everything.
Their gift shop was pretty, and the buildings were really Mediterranean looking, which was odd in the middle of Kentucky, but pretty. I mean, it was pretty, but it was more industrial setting than it was soothing, let's go have a drink setting.
Which maybe because they did have not where the gift shop is, but where you come in to the area and you can look over. It looked like there was a small restaurant and like a patio to drink. So it would be kind of cool to go to in the summertime to maybe have an evening cocktail or something. But other than going on a full-fledged tour and seeing kind of the difference, I would have no interest in actually going there, honestly. Four Roses is one of my favorites for sure, and it reminded me of why it's on my shelf. But Yeah, I definitely enjoyed Woodford a whole lot more. That was
Yeah.
pretty cool to see.
And then Angels, downtown Louisville.
Yep.
I liked the building because it was a historic building that they had revamped and
Mm-hmm.
put their distillery and everything in. But what was cool about Angels was when they set it up, the the big pots and all of that, they set it up for education. I mean, they
Oh,
had
yeah.
diagrams on the walls showing the distillery process.
So they were way ahead of it. They were planning for tours when
They
they
were
built
Yeah.
planning.
And Mom and I were talking about that. I was like, if you want to learn about the industry and how it works, Angels is the place to go because
Yep.
they did a fantastic job of setting it up for education purposes and
Yes.
showing how it works. And so
Mm.
if you don't necessarily want beauty, but you want to learn about it, that's the place to go to.
And the building is still beautiful, but it's
It
just
is. Yeah.
very urban, industrial.
It's consistent with how Louisville looks, very
Yeah.
industrial, very,
Yeah.
blocky. It's what it is. But that's interesting and disappointing also is that is as much as Angels Envy is becoming more and more considered of a big name, up there with Woodford, up there with Four Roses, up there with Buffalo Trace. People think of Angels as being that type of a scale. It's not. It's more closely related, in my opinion, to craft distillers. Their output is Monday through Friday. The finishing location, which they finish all their whiskey in either port barrels or rum barrels. Their finishing room was the size of a large shop.
Yeah.
It was not impressive in scale whatsoever, and that I think is also part of the reason why if you go to a liquor store, you will find Angels Envy products to be more expensive than what people would imagine they would be normally.
Truly small batches then.
Yep.
And
Yep,
they were
very small.
expanding. They were
Well,
saying that they had a second location.
Hey, they're
they
one of
were
my favorite
building
whiskeys
to.
though. They're
I
good.
know, but
They're
at a
good.
certain point, that cost is no longer worth it, regardless of how
Well,
good it is.
At some point they'll have to expand
They are.
and then maybe drop that price back down for
It's like,
volume.
once the price
why
goes
would you
up
do
with
that?
whiskey, I don't think it goes down.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know, but if you start losing your base,
Yeah.
Um,
So anyway,
ta-
I enjoyed those distilleries all for just different reasons.
yeah,
And then
Now-
I, of course, bought glasses for Dad.
everywhere.
Yeah.
Everywhere.
Yeah, goodness
I couldn't
gracious.
believe that.
And I should point out that not a single glass broke on the way home.
Unbelievable. Because some of those are pretty
Some of
thin
those
wall
are pretty-
We
glass.
did a good listen. I've moved a time or two. I've got some practice behind moving glassware, and I helped secure the load, so to speak, and we
This
did a good
still-
job.
Yeah, but it
On the
still went on an
airplane.
airplane.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, we keep in mind we did the glassware is
carried
permitted
on most
through
of the glass.
TSA, so we did do carry on, which made it significantly easier.
Yeah. So what'd
Which
you think
honestly,
about
with how the
glass?
temperatures were, I'm kind of glad we did that because the temperatures themselves may have made them more brittle and likely
Yeah.
to break anyway if they
Yeah.
would have been not in our carry-ons.
True. Yeah, that's
So
true.
definitely glad we made that call. We already talked about Churchill Downs, Lights Under Louisville. What'd you think about that one?
I thought
So,
that was pretty cool.
If anybody's familiar with Louisville, what people don't know when they think of Louisville is there is a mega cavern underneath the city of Louisville that I don't recall what it was built for. If it was for a nuclear shelter
I believe
or
it was.
what, but it was for something, and I'm looking it up right now.
And it had
And-
it was electrified and well supported and engineered for large masses of people if necessary.
Right.
I mean, it's huge.
Oh, and this okay. So just a quick Google says 100-acre limestone cavern capable of shrugging off a 260-mile-per-hour tornado. So it is designed for
Tornado shelter, safety shelter. Yeah.
protection, but underneath of that there's a theme park and like zip lining and stuff. But
Yeah.
where we went, there was because of the holiday season from I think it said mid-November to just after the new year.
Yeah.
There's a light show, a Christmas light show. And so
And
we went
and
through
music.
and music, yeah. But we went through and we got to see all sorts of lights and everything underneath there. They use the walls for, laser shows and Christmas lights, and there were different themes. And there were funny dad jokes up on
Yeah.
up on the ceilings that I was reading because they were hilarious. Yeah, I thought that was something that it wasn't nearly as much, or it wasn't nearly as exciting as I thought it would be, but it was still very impressive and very cool.
Yeah.
So,
Oh, the man hours to put that thing together is pretty
for sure.
impressive.
Yeah,
And you know, if you had little kids, oh, I think they would love it because they
probably
could be in
love
their
that.
jammies looking out the window and eating cookies and drinking hot chocolate.
Sounds like a trip for me.
Yeah. But no, I
Now,
thought it was great. And it was
looking,
warm.
yeah, it was warm. Are you talking about underneath the?
Yeah. I mean, if you needed to roll your window down to see something, it's warm enough you can do that.
Yeah, I would say it was probably mid 30s when we went.
Yeah.
Ambient temperature outside, and it wasn't much cooler than that underneath in the caverns at all.
No.
And the opening's not like it's closed off or anything, it's open, the air can flow.
Yeah,
But
caverns, it should be cool.
Yeah.
Should be
yeah,
fun.
having experienced Kentucky, a little bit of Tennessee, and previously New York with the Niagara Falls and so on,
I loved Niagara Falls.
what would be your biggest comparison of like Montana to other states and other regions? And keep in mind, like, I guess we've also, to disclose, we've also been to Virginia, so like Williamsburg. We've gotten to see DC. We've gotten to briefly see Orlando for Disney World. Then we've seen California a couple times. Yeah, like what would you say is
New Mexico,
sure? Yeah, New Mexico.
the Pacific Northwest coast, tide pools.
God, we spent a lot of money on these kids, showing them some culture.
Trying. Home's always the best place to be.
Yeah, I'll agree with that.
It's always good to get home. It's nice to go visit places and see something new, but it's even better to get home. I don't know. It's just that we have a very different way of life. Things are, I think, even though we seem to always be under the gun for time, we got a schedule, we got to get this done, we got to get this done. I think in the West, life is slower paced, other than the
I agree with
coast,
that.
you know, but in the West, it's just a slower pace.
Maybe it's just we prioritize.
What?
Or maybe not.
What are you talking about?
You know, as weird as it is, I think it's the fact that there are less people.
I think
or at least there's less congestion of people, because when there's more and more people running around and milling about, it there's something just like music where it has the ability to quicken your heart rate up or slow it down. I think that's the same aspect, or at least the same.
I think you're right.
Yeah.
And so for me, I once thought I wanted to live in a big city. Then I met your dad, and he was like, "We're not going to a big city. What are you talking about?"
Yeah.
But no, that was fleeting because I couldn't sustain that level for a long period of time. You know, I like the pace of life in the West.
Well, and
It's
I've been
neat to see the unique features of all of those places, but to visit.
It really gives you appreciation for being home too.
I think
right.
Yeah.
Well, because I've been to DC with you guys. I've also been to DC by myself about a year ago for Thanksgiving. And then I was in New York City a couple months ago for just we had the opportunity, so we went for a day. In record amount, spent only $38 the entire time being in New York City for one day.
That is a record amount.
I felt really accomplished on that one. But the fact that I'd been to both those locations, they're very high population, a lot of people moving around. Those are places definitely that give me anxiety just by being there. And like, we weren't in a rush or anything when we were at New York, and everything felt like it was still in a rush. Like couldn't stop moving. Like, things are happening. You just need to keep moving with the flow. And even if you're trying to go somewhere else, then you need to get into another salmon run so you can go the other direction. And if you're going to come back, you better jump in the other salmon run so you can come back.
Yep. Yeah, I spent 2 weeks in New York City back in 2001. Was there for a teacher's not a convention, but workshop. And I remember calling Dad one night from my hotel room, and we were up on, I don't know, probably the 15th or 20th floor, right across from the Chevron building. I don't know. Chrysler building,
Chrysler.
Chrysler building. And I said, you know, it's a neat place to visit, lots of cool stuff. But as I look out my window, it's an anthill. I just see all these ants going everywhere. And that was a long 2 weeks for me. I think if I could have been there for 6 days, see everything I wanted to see and come back.
Be an ant.
Yeah, be an ant. I would have been good. But it was wearing on me to be there that long.
And
And
I'll tell you, Atlanta is very similar too, and Atlanta's getting more and more so as well every year.
really.
Mm-hmm.
And London, I spent a week in London with a friend, and
Oh, I can imagine that.
same thing, you know. And the thing about that is you go to New York and you feel congested and tight because all of the buildings are tall and you can't see the sky.
Right.
Which, I mean, we're big sky country, right? And everybody recognized us as big sky country at this workshop I was at. They're like, oh, the skies are beautiful. And it's like, yeah, you guys build buildings so you can't see them, you know. And in London, you go from New York is scrunched, London is scrunchier.
Well, and your living spaces are scrunched too, right?
Much more so, yeah. And we were fortunate to stay with a friend of who I was traveling with. And so we didn't have to worry about a motel or anything. We had our own room. But yeah, the history is awesome. The sites are awesome, but too many people for me for an extended period.
What's been your favorite place outside Montana to visit? And you can't count the Dakotas or Wyoming. Don't.
Oh, I don't know. Honestly, I don't know. I've never been anywhere tropical. I think I would probably enjoy that, but again, I think I'd only enjoy it for a short period of time.
You know, it's kind of a toss up between all of the stuff we saw around the mall in DC. And
because you're talking Air and Space Museum, the various monuments, Arlington National Cemetery, all sorts of those cool things.
I mean, those are even our capital, and I think every graduating senior should go through, you know, and to understand, you know, what our government is and what it's about, and
get to see
what it used to be. Yeah, the National Archives.
I was gonna say the archives, the National Art Museum.
Yeah, a lot of the national or the Smithsonian, different ones. But I also really, really enjoyed Williamsburg.
Yeah,
that's cool.
Yeah. You know, I mean,
even though we got lost on Lafayette Street constantly.
Yeah, guess who
Thanks,
was
Braden.
navigating there to get us out of that.
Well, Braden got us
out of there.
Because Dad kept saying, no, we need to turn here. We need to go this way. And Braden keeps saying, no.
Finally, he said something.
He said it about 3 times.
Yeah,
before we believed it.
Yeah, but it was Braden, and we weren't going to believe him because he takes on a wild goose chase just for the sheer joy of it.
You would. You know what? I can't pick a favorite because they all were good in different ways. I mean,
Chaco Canyon, Mesa Verde, that was cool too.
You know, that's really early North American history.
Yeah.
And but then all the stuff in the East Coast, and then the tide pools I think are awesome.
You guys were pretty little for that. We might have pushed.
I remember it though. I don't know if Braden does.
Bray was 4, I think.
Yeah, Braden was pretty little. He got
hooked
up with
a crab.
Yeah. I remember
he remembers that.
Scarred for life.
Yeah, scarred for life.
That's an emotional terrorism there.
Because for me, going from west to east, I've been to Washington and Oregon, and all I really remember from a lot of that is rainy and miserable.
Yeah.
Been to California, various parts of California. It's always warm and sunny. Nevada. So I went to Vegas. I don't ever really want to go to Vegas unless it's for a very specific reason.
On mine. Yeah. I have no reason to want to go back
Walking
to Vegas.
up the strip down at 5th one afternoon and you're done. That's it.
Yeah. Especially for somebody like me who just doesn't enjoy gambling. It's not a place for me to go.
My only regret on that one was we could have gone to Penn and Teller, but we were saying $75 a ticket, I think.
Yeah.
In about 2002. And we're like, gosh, we don't want to spend that kind of money. I wish we would have just done it because
now it's probably closing down 200 a ticket.
I would be surprised. Yeah, I don't know.
Wyoming, been there a lot, but one of my favorite places in Wyoming that I would love to go back to potentially is Jackson Hole and the Tetons, just to like go, camping in the Tetons for a little bit. Four Corners area, those 4 states, seeing, like you said, the Anasazi and the Pueblos and all that, that's very cool. Been to Texas, south part of Texas specifically, that's kind of cool to see. Been through a lot of the flyover states more or less to just drive through than anything because I didn't have a reason to be there. Louisiana, I like the gator bites, and that's about it. Georgia, Atlanta is massive. It's just an ever-growing city full of more and more suburbs that are getting pulled into it. Florida was cool for the Disney World part. I have no desire to ever be in Florida though, because the amount of people there as well. The Tennessee, Kentucky areas are all right. Arkansas, I think,
and I didn't feel like Tennessee, Kentucky was super congested population wise.
Not really.
And they have, I think, about similar populations to Montana, much smaller area, but it was a more relaxed environment to me.
So looking at some of the stats prior to this conversation, Kentucky has I think 4.1 or 4.2 million people, and Montana's got
just over 1,
I think, million. But Arkansas, that's just a very poor state. I think of places for us like the Roundup area where there's a lot of welfare and just not a lot of things that are good about it. Unfortunately, that's a lot of what the Arkansas area is like. Tennessee, Kentucky, parts of it are like that, but then there's also larger cities like Nashville, Chattanooga, Memphis, Louisville, Lexington, New York. I had a lot of fun in New York. I went to Buffalo. Buffalo is fun to go see some sporting events, and that's about it. New York City, didn't really enjoy that. I absolutely hate Illinois. That is not fun to be in, around, or anywhere near. And Ohio, Cleveland, I felt like was an extremely dirty, nasty, gross city. Personally, sorry to everybody out there.
Very industrial still.
Yeah. Gettysburg, been to Gettysburg, that was pretty cool. Been to Virginia quite a bit, between DC, Baltimore, up in Maryland, Williamsburg. That's all kind of cool. Never been to Myrtle Beach though. North Carolina, I remember during the summertime was just being absolutely horrendously humid and hot, and I didn't like it at all. And I didn't understand why people wanted to be there. And that's why I decided I never wanted to be in the South ever. And here I am in Kentucky. So, yeah, that's pretty much my take on the United States. I agree. Montana is awesome. I love Montana. I want to go back to Montana, and home is where the heart is.
Yep.
Stay away from Montana except for the months of the end of May till the end of August. Come on out, bring your kids, and
visit,
go home.
Yeah. As Matthew McConaughey would say, he's like, and this was a very interesting part too, and we'll actually have this conversation probably in a month or so, or maybe even a little further. But he had a conversation with Joe Rogan about a year and a half ago, and he said a lot of the reasons, people are swarming Texas are because of the different political reasons and lifestyles, and they want to enjoy that. But he goes, remember, don't change things by the way you used to live by them, maintain the lifestyle you're enjoying, because he goes, otherwise, how he put it, make it a stop, don't make it a stay. And that's why people in Montana enjoy tourism. But we also see the negative effects of it because it does dramatically change our lifestyle and the way we live. So
right now it's 32 below the wind chill outside.
Yeah.
So,
and that's with only a small,
just a light wind, 9 mile an hour is nothing.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, in Kentucky, it's rainy and low 40s. So there's a difference for you.
We had to postpone a couple trips this weekend because of snowing and drifting
road
snow
closed.
and ice.
Like a beef delivery.
Yeah.
So, all
right, good news is it's on ice.
It is on ice.
with that, that's all I got. I had fun having family here to visit me and enjoy time with me. But I don't know if they enjoyed my company as much as I enjoyed theirs. You never know.
We did.
I got a free bat to beat my brother with, so that's all that was important.
Can't wait till everybody's home close.
Me too.
Yeah, 360 days. Oh, I'm not counting.
Woohoo!
Well, with that, I'll turn it over to you.
Well, there ain't much to talk about being paid other than thanks for being here till you are better paid.